Okay, so due to the timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly nature of Tenet, the opening is arguably one of the most confuddling things ever put to film. Who is the protagonist working for? Why do the SWAT team members turn on him? What happens to the algorithm? And what the hell is everyone saying?
I'm not sure you made it loud enough, sir.
Well, we're going to be breaking it all down and answering some of the big questions to clear up any confusion. If this is your first time here, then welcome back to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul. Okay, so whilst I normally tend to do ending explains, because of Tenet's plot structure and time manipulation, I think it's actually fitting that this is the first film that I break down the opening of. Throughout the movie, we're told that ignorance is a weapon, and at almost every major plot point in the movie, the protagonist has absolutely no idea what's going on. This is very much the case with the audience too, and Nolan purposely drops us in at the deep end so that, like the lead, we have little to no idea what's going on. Now up top, this is happening at the exact same moment that the mission at Stalsk 12 is, and across the timeline a version of both Neil and the protagonist are storming Sator's forces in order to get an already completed algorithm. However, here the characters have not lived through that moment, and are thus putting the pieces in place to let the algorithm be collected so that Sator can assemble it in order for them to steal it. Yes, I was as lost as you are. Now if we look at the Neil we meet at this point, he saves the protagonist's life, meets him in India, and then the two go through the airport scene, highway chase, and then invert in order to go back to this point in time so that they can stop the algorithm from being dumped. Now Neil is aware of his mission from the off, whereas the protagonist that we follow is not. He is currently working for the CIA and was tipped off that there would be an attack at the Opera House which would allow him and his team to slip in and make contact with a Ukrainian high official known as the Well-Dressed Man. Before the real SWAT team even arrive, both the protagonist's forces and one half of Sator's wait in a van for them to show up so that the former team can slip in and meet this contact in order to get a special package. The CIA are already being duplicitous here, and they plan to work with Sator's men but double cross them in order to get the well-dressed man so that they can gain intel from him. They want to swap him out with their decoy so that they have a mole in Sator's operation and can also learn exactly what the hell is going on. Now they are sitting waiting for the events to kick off in order to infiltrate the location under the guise of a SWAT team. This is why we see them wait until a specific group arrives so that they can choose the exact badges to use in order to infiltrate undetected. But how did they know this would happen, especially as the event hadn't even taken place yet from the protagonist's point of view? Well, this is because the CIA was tipped off by the future protagonist who knew his past self would have to go through this in order to become him. He of course was a key in supplying the fake cyanide pills so that not only his past self would take one, but also so that Sator would get the other in order to use it at the end. Now the reason that I said there were half of Sator's men with the protagonist is because the other half is carrying out the attacks. This is a temporal pincer in many ways, as one team will set off the events in order to get the SWAT team to come in, which will allow the other part of the team to use the protagonist to get the algorithm piece, and then they will take it. One team is also tasked with planting explosives in order to cover their tracks, so no one knows about what they really got away with. Now the protagonist waits until the SWAT team launches, and they start to pump sleeping gas into the sealed room. This scene in general is actually based on the Moscow theatre hostage crisis, in which gas similar to this was used. However, unlike Tenet, in real life the gas was poisonous, and it's estimated that deaths were in the 200s due to complications that were caused by it. Now as this is happening and the Ukrainian SWAT team are storming the epicenter of it, the protagonist and his CIA team sneak off and go to his private booth. We see the protagonist dismantle one of the security guard's guns by grabbing the top of it and yanking it off, and this is something that he would later do when fighting himself at the airport. Now another bit of foreshadowing comes with the password "We live in a Twilight world," and this is later used by Sator, cementing that he had something to do with his plot. Now it is possible that Sator is the one who tipped off the CIA, and that is why they're working with his men, but either way, that information comes from the protagonist, who may have let Sator know it in order to allow his past self to go on the path that he does. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of why Sator was actually working for the protagonist again, but I've made a video on that which you should definitely check out if you're still interested. Now, the protagonist informs the well-dressed man that this siege is actually a blind to vanish him, and he gives him the choice to either go with him or die. The well-dressed man could have easily have remained an informant and stayed with the Ukrainians, but the protagonist telling him this makes him realize he has to go with the CIA in order to stay alive. Thus, they leave the booth and the protagonist tells him to remain in his seat so that he can go and get the algorithm. Now it's at this point that he discovers the explosives laid out by Sator's men and is also caught by a real SWAT team member. He flips the fake badge off him and asks who he is, but the protagonist's CIA team member shows up and shoots him and then takes the well-dressed man to the rally point. This is actually a changing room in the opera itself, but we'll talk about that slightly later in the video. Now the protagonist arrives at the baggage and coat racks and goes to number 248. Later in the film, an algorithm piece is named 241, and as we know it's split into 9 parts. 241 and 248 do denote separate pieces of it, but that might just be a reach. From here, the protagonist gets the bag and is confused over the piece as he doesn't really know what it is. He then goes to the rally point, which is when his CIA contact from the van switches clothes with the well-dressed man, and you may remember him from before as someone that the protagonist spoke to. The well-dressed man mentions that he has a way out through a service tunnel, and with one half of the SWAT team he takes the algorithm off and escapes into the sewers. Now I'm not sure exactly how Sator's men managed to get hold of the algorithm, but there are 2 possibilities. The first one is that we see them talking about rewinding the clock at the train yard and that they're actually carrying out another temporal pincer to attack the team in the sewers. Thus, if this does happen, then the well-dressed man is killed and the algorithm is taken at this point. However, there's also another possibility that I go with, and I think that his team did make it out and the piece that we later see being stolen is one and the same. They do look very similar, and that makes the most sense, so I do believe that this is what happened. The protagonist and his team member are then informed that there's no way to stop the explosives from detonating, and thus they run back through the opera house in order to collect them. Now a SWAT team member catches the protagonist with one, and this moment is slightly confusing. It is possible that he believes the protagonist is planting it, and then thinks that he's the one behind the attack. However, it could also be one of Sator's men in disguise, and this is why we hear the line, "You don't have to kill them." Either way, it all comes to the same conclusion, but yeah, a couple of possibilities here, including the Russians potentially even trying to cover up that they've just gassed lots of people. I might even be wrong about Sator's men planting the explosives, and this would be more in line with the Moscow theatre crisis, in which there was a cover-up by the Russians because yeah, it looked bad that they basically killed the hostages that they were trying to save. Whoever he is though, he has a gun to the character's head, but an inverted bullet flies backwards through him and goes into Neil's gun. If you can't get your head around this, then do understand that we see this in full motion later in the movie when the protagonist is firing a gun at the wall. Off topic, but this wall actually comes from Stealth 12, which is why the bullets and so on go backwards from it. Big shoutouts for HD Gaming for recognising that. Now Neil runs off and with his buddy, the protagonist throws the explosives and returns to Sator's team's van. However, they know that they've been double-crossed, and thus they double-cross the CIA and take them to the train yard to find out where the real well-dressed man and algorithm are. We can see trains moving in different directions, and this actually subtly foreshadows the direction that time will be going in the movie. They then start to torture the protagonist for information, and at one point even pull his teeth out. His cyanide pill is removed, but he manages to get one from his ally, who kept a hold of theirs. Believing that he's dead, Sator's men leave him at the train yard, and he's then picked up by the forces of TENET. They give him time to rest, and though never explicitly stated, I think that TENET distributed numerous cyanide pills throughout the CIA, which actually put people in a coma. Over the years, several were supposed to take them as part of TENET testing who was worthy of joining their ranks, but only the protagonist ever went through with it. He's given the keyword TENET and then dropped off at a windmill out the way, and we later see a future version of the protagonist on the same boat passing this location, so it's clear that he was purposely placed here out the way in order to stop himself from interacting with his future version. Anyway, that's pretty much the opening of the movie. I know it's difficult to understand, especially with the dialogue, but hopefully this helped out. Now, I'm really conscious that you might need an explanation video to explain this video, so hopefully if I've missed something out or something's unclear, people in the comments have now given us the answers that we crave so much. I think I did an alright job though, but if you want to drop something below, that's totally fine, as there's so many different ways that you can really take this opening. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of January, in which we're giving away 3 copies of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings 4K box sets to our subscribers. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the movie. Now if you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the theory that Kat is the true future protagonist, which will be linked on screen right now. We go over all the evidence to support it, and why it just makes so much sense after several watches, so definitely check it out after this. Anyway, thank you for sitting through to the start of this video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.